Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Chair. My question is to Senator Corman, but before doing so, before putting that question, I must say how appalled I am at that outburst from Senator Di Natale, because there is nothing more regressive than the imposts on energy that the Greens Party has put on the poor in this country. Nothing more regressive. Senator Corman, I express my appreciation to you for the advice from Treasury, making the staff available. They were very helpful. One of the questions I put to them was that could they explain the impact, where the money would go in the economy, and they said to me they couldn't. So I would like to know how the Treasury has modelled the impact of these tax cuts in terms of economic growth.
Senator Corman.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. President. Well, Chair, firstly, what we've got to remember is that this is not the government's money, it's the people's money. And the government is, through this legislation, we are asking the Senate to support our legislation, which would help ensure that working Australians, on the terms as outlined in the bill, will get to keep more of their own money. You ask where in the economy that money will go. Well, it will go where individual Australians decide to spend it. And of course, the income tax relief prioritises low and middle income earners in the first instance, which will help them deal with cost of living pressures. And then of course, over a period, we're phasing in further reforms which are designed to ensure that bracket creep does not continue to run rampant, unabated. Like if we don't take the bracket creep monkey off people's back, if we don't address bracket creep, more and more middle-income earners will be pushed into the higher income tax brackets. That undermines aspiration and over time weakens the economy. I mean, that is, if we did nothing, hard-working Australians would actually go backwards because middle-income earners would be pushed into higher income tax brackets. I mean, that has been the core part of this debate. And of course, individual Australians, we trust individual Australians to make the judgment where they want to spend their money, where they best spend their money on their personal priorities and the priorities of their families.
Senator Roberts.
Chair, through you, a question to Senator Corman. You haven't identified where the money will be spent. Will it be spent on imports? Will it be spent on domestic products? Will it be spent on disposable income, or will it be spent on essentials? And that's what we need to know to assess the impact on the economy. So that's what I was after.
Senator Corman.
Well, and I've answered that as best I can by saying that comes down to the choices of individual Australians, in terms of where they want to spend their money. I mean, it is not, the government is not sort of does not have some sort of process where we prescribe where people can spend their own money. What we're saying here is that we are making a decision as a parliament to leave people with more of their own money, and they can spend it on their priorities, on their individual priorities, on the priorities of their families, how they want to spend it.
Senator Roberts.
I accept that, through you, Chair, I accept that, Senator Corman. We are in favour of individuals keeping more of their money rather than having the government dictate how it's spent. But you're now releasing some of that money and you're saying you don't know where it will be spent. So how can you assess the impact on the economic growth? You can say that individuals will get more money. We can see that. But will they spend it on imports? Will they spend it on exports? And until you answer that question accurately, you don't know the impact on economic growth.
Senator Corman.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. President. What we do know is that, as is projected, $158 billion in money that people will no longer have to hand over to the government will be spent in the economy. By working families around Australia, and that will, obviously, because of the way the package is designed, it will provide much needed cost of living pressure relief to low and middle income earners in the first instance, but it will also ensure that all working Australians continue to have the right incentive and reward for effort, which will help us ensure that the economy remains strong and indeed grows stronger into the future.
Senator Roberts.
Through you, Chair, again. I'm not going to ask the question again because I've just learned 3 different ways of saying the same thing, which means nothing. Senator Corman, I remind you of a question that I put to you informally just next door here, and not long after I joined the Senate in 2016. I said, when will we ever face real tax reform in this country, and you said, no, it's too difficult. So I accept the comments about bracket creep, but why don't we get rid of bracket creep altogether? Would you be willing to explore that at some time?
Senator Corman.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. This is real tax reform, and I commend it to the Senate.
So the question